Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Crunching Your Growth. I'm Phil Masiello, and today we have a truly exceptional guest joining us. As a renowned entrepreneur, best-selling author, one of the world's leading experts on scaling a business, and Verne Harnish is his name. You've probably heard of him. You may know Vern as the founder of Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, which now boasts over 18,000 members worldwide, or from his influential books, Scaling Up, Mastering Rockefeller Habits. And over the past 4 decades, he's guided countless business leaders and companies through complexities of growth. He teaches at premier institutions like MIT and Harvard's Entrepreneurship Center. He's got a reputation as a go-to strategist in taking business from startup to success stories. He's going to share his insights today. We're going to get into a great discussion. I've got some great questions for him. And personally, I have used a lot of Vern's tools over my lifetime and over my career. And I'm going to tell you, invaluable resource. So let's bring Vern in. We'll let him talk about his background a little bit more, and then we'll get into some really good discussions. Keep it lighthearted and some great information. Vern, welcome and thanks for taking the time to come to be on my show.
You got it, Phil. And look, I think your introduction gave a good enough background. I mean, the short of it is, I grew up around entrepreneurs. My dad had built a rocket ship of a company called Higher Electronics, and then he lost it all in the '73 recession. He literally was growing broke, and he never recovered from it, Phil. So what's great is today, hopefully, we've helped a few entrepreneurs avoid what my dad and family had to go through. So it's very missional, this kind of work that we do.
Is it? Yeah. So I'll tell you just really quick. There were 2 things that when I went to one of your seminars, and it was a small one and very intimate, and there were 2 things I walked away with. One was the one-page business plan, which to me made so much sense because I came from a world of these multi-page book business plans. And to me, it was just so difficult. What are you going to do? Page through it every day to see where you're supposed to be at. And the one-page business plan to me was almost an eye opener. And I still use it. And we have a business called Crunch Growth, and I still push that on some of my clients to use it because I say it's one thing that you can keep on your desk and you'll know every day where you're trying to get to. And the other thing was, you said, if you really want to be taken seriously, write a book. And I've written 3. So those 2 things, aside from all the information that you had, those were 2 things I walked away with. And I still credit you for it. And I still talk to people about it. And anyway, just a little kudo to you for that.
Well, Phil, I appreciate it. We always talk about if we could just get everybody on the same page. But you need the page for everybody to get on. It's like a musician. I'm a keyboardist. My second son is a jazz drummer. And it's what I love about jazz. You can bring in these musicians from all over the world that have never performed together. And as long as there's 3 things, we're all playing the same song, we're on the same sheet of paper, we understand the fundamental rules of jazz. And that's the core values in your company. What are the rules of your game? And then number 3, we got to play to the same beat. And that's that drum beat of the business, is that meeting rhythm that we're well known for. We were coaching a company this morning. They really realized that, we never adopted this daily huddle that you talk about so much. It's 8 minutes, but that thing can save everybody an hour and a half a day and keep stuff moving. So I think a lot of what we do is like jazz.
That's a great analogy. But you've helped thousands of entrepreneurs scale their businesses, right? And what are the core principles or habits that you recommend that people adopt every day for sustainable growth?
Well, the first one is to make sure you're clear. What is your list of influencers? And it was the question Bill Gates considered the best question he'd ever been asked. It was the question that Steve Jobs learned literally pre-product when he and Woz launched Apple. And Phil, it was the first question I tackled when I decided I wanted to build the world's largest entrepreneur organization. And it came from a guy, Regis McKenna. Regis was the consultant to Steve, again, pre-product. And he said, all right, you want to get anything done, take a piece of paper out and make a list of who are the top 25 influencers. And he said, look, the bigger the names, the faster you can scale. And then he said, take 1 hour every week and work that list. And by the way, that's still 10 a.m. every Monday now for, what is that, 41 years. So it was 1983. So as an example, he already assigned a young guy to me, Rich Moran, and I took a piece of paper out. And remember, it's 1983.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I'm a student at Wichita State. I put down President Ronald Reagan. Literally, young, dumb, and broke. But Phil, 36 months later, I've got President Reagan flying in to give the welcome to this big event of young entrepreneurs that I'm hosting in LA. I put down Steve Jobs. I put down Michael Dell. I put down Inc. and Venture Magazine. I didn't know at the time Bernie Goldhirsch, who became a dear friend, owned that. Arthur Lipper, who's still a friend today, owned Venture Magazine. And in 36 months, we were global. And we had gotten everybody on that list. The modern version, Dave Rogan-Mosier, Dave launched a company called Proof in Austin. And the first thing he did, the first weekend, taking our tools, he made a list of the top 50 influencers in the space he wanted to dominate. The issue was none of them will return his phone call. Look, President Reagan is not going to return my phone call either. So what we do, Dave found one person who knew all of them. He did give him 1% equity in the company. Literally, this is the weekend he and his partners chose to start the company. And then all they did was work that list. And let's speed forward here 5 years later. We know the company is Jasper. Their latest was 125 million at a 1.5 billion valuation. And Dave will tell you, the party got started making that influencer list and working that list. So it's maybe counter to what you were thinking. And then our goal is I have to report out to my peer coach every day, which influencer did I connect with? And that has been helpful.
That's fantastic. I used Jasper was the first AI tool that I used starting a couple of years ago, and obviously we moved on from there. But it was a great tool. It was a great tool when it first started. Those guys had a pretty good. I almost had him on the show. We just had a scheduling conflict. We couldn't work it out, but we still go back and forth. He's a great guy.
Good.
Yeah, great guy.
If you do host Dave, ask him about his influencer list. That was the starting point.
I will. And Jim James also. You were on Jim's show, and he's I love that guy. He's another friend of mine. I've been on his show, and
it's a small world.
It is it's a small
world. That's
world.
part of the reason why the influencer thing works, Phil. As the company scales, we have a tendency to ignore our best customers. We're always going after the new customers. We just sent out our holiday thank you to our VIP list of just over 500. And that's not minor. It's why, Sam Zell, the late Sam Zell, was able to do what he did, or Greg Brenneman and his turnaround. They all have the list and they continue to nurture it. Yeah.
Yeah. We advocate, and I did it. I employed that strategy with the shaving company when we built it. But I also advocate, and always have advocated, that every Friday you should call 5 of your best customers and just talk to them and find out what they like, what they don't like. Because once you do that, you'll hear, even small things about your company. You'll hear that, shipping was delayed, or the box was broken, or whatever. Even if they like you, they're still going to tell you. But you call your 5 best customers, your 5 worst customers, and you'll hear a tremendous amount about how good your company is doing.
Yeah. And Phil, right on. And do business with yourself. Call your own phone number, place an order. One of the things I admire with Aflac is they require every employee to file a claim, because most people have never had to file a claim.
Right.
And how can you be a company that's a critical thing that you do for customers that your people have never done? Horst Schultz was a good friend who built Ritz-Carlton, and he made sure that every employee, we're talking about housekeepers and others, stayed at a 5-star, often their competitor, so that they could see what these ladies and gentlemen needed to deliver for the ladies and gentlemen that they were serving. It's
Right.
very, very simple, fundamental things like this, Phil.
Oh, I agree with you. It's very simple, but it is fundamental, and you'll hear a lot. I think sometimes, and we actually just talked about this in a mastermind group that I'm in about the ostrich principle, or whatever you want to call it, where people sometimes, or founders, feel this pressure, and rather than facing the pressure or facing the problem, they sometimes hide, thinking the problem's going to go away, and it never goes away. And you can't solve the problem unless you face it.
Well, and a lot of times too, Phil, people, in my books, I'll often give a big company example, because I want startup entrepreneurs and growth entrepreneurs to realize that real leaders do this. So we saw that coming out of the pandemic, revenue had really stalled for Airbnb.
Yeah.
And so what did Brian Chesky, the CEO, did? He went and lived in and worked out of Airbnbs for 6 months. And he found it. He found it's never 5, it's never 3, it's the one thing he needed to fix. And I don't know if you saw, but 2024 was a record year for Airbnb, which led to the whole conversation around founder mode. If we have time, we should come back to this idea of founder mode versus manager mode. But you got to go get back engaged with customers. Steve Jobs did that every afternoon.
Yeah. We could get into founder mode now. I mean, since it's on top of mind, it would be probably a great lead-in.
Yeah, and Paul Graham, who's the one who picked up on what Brian Chesky was saying and kind of coined the term founder mode versus manager mode. He gave a warning that he was afraid that founders would start to over micromanage. But here is my conclusion, Phil, and I'm writing a piece on it now that I've had to try to test it out. The key question is, what is the soul of your business? Now, when I first ask an entrepreneur that, often it's confusing, but then I ask them the question, if they've been in business at all for a while and have had some success, what that means is, what's been the key to your success?
Right.
Clearly, for Apple, it was design. And so what founder mode means is, I give the founder permission to be maniacal, to maybe be an a-hole if they need to from it, to go micromanage that narrow aspect of the business. You can delegate and outsource everything else in the company, but it's soul. And you can't free yourself up as a founder till you find somebody as good or better than you. And he did in Johnny Ive. And Johnny was there 10 years after Steve Jobs' untimely death, which is why we saw the market cap of Apple 10x. Yeah. Now, there's usually a 36-month cycle, design to market cycle. Johnny left in 2021. And it could be why, for the first time, Apple is not the #1 market cap company 36 months later. So I'll just share a story of now a mere mortal. So a guy who had built a construction company over about 30 years, and they were successful, about 600 million. But he said, I'm turning it over to some younger people in the company, and it's not going well. I go, all right, say more. And then I asked him the question, okay, so what's the soul of your business? He's like, I don't know. Then I said, all right, what's been the key to you getting from startup to 600 million? And he goes, he knew that immediately. He said, we do very complex projects, but through it all, Great Recession, supply chain challenges, pandemic, we never missed a deadline. In a way, that is the promise. That is the essence of strategy, is your promise that it's going to be great design. That was always Apple's promise, that no matter what, we're going to deliver this project on time. He then, in the next sentence, Phil goes, and we've missed 4 deadlines in the last 48 months. I said, there it is, Dave. I give you permission to go back in and be maniacal, to micromanage that piece of this company until you find the right person who can do it as good or better than you. To me, that's founder's mode.
That's great. And I think, we're seeing some of this happen with Starbucks, where they floundered over the last few years. And they've made some missteps, and one of which I shake my head at was
Yeah.
when they tried to convince people that Italians put olive oil in their coffee, and they
Yeah.
started selling olive oil, and I could never make that connection. And I knew Italian. I'm Italian. I have people over in Italy. I knew they never put olive oil in the coffee, and I'm thinking, how did we go from Starbucks to olive oil in the coffee? And I truly believe that hurt them, because I think people started to see the disconnect in the brand, which is the brand promise.
Yes. And I think, to give credit to this fifth CEO
Right.
that Howard Schultz has brought in, I think this guy's getting it. The commercials I'm seeing, it's all going back to the coffee and your experience with it's the coffee experience.
Exactly.
It's the soul of that business. And he was bold enough, because it was Howard's idea to do this olive oil coffee. And he said, Howard, I'd like to better the room when that conversation was had, but Howard, we're getting rid of the olive oil coffee.
Yeah.
Which is exactly to your point, Phil. So this new CEO seems to be taking the company back to its soul.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen the commercials and even the store experience, but I think from what he's saying, the focus on getting back to delivering a great cup of coffee in 30 seconds, or whatever you want to time it.
You're right.
Yeah, I think that's really, because I don't go to Starbucks to eat pastries or to put olive oil in my coffee. I go to Starbucks for a great cup of coffee.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So since we're talking about founders, when a company scales, the founder's role often evolves. Can you talk a little bit about leadership transition and as a business grows, and how a founder can effectively level up for each new stage?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right on. When a company starts, we have a tool called FACE, Function Accountability Chart, and it lists all the functions of the business. And guess whose name's next to every one of them? Me, which is, let's back up for a second. It's why Noam Wasserman's research at Harvard, I thought, was so important. Companies that were started by multiple founders, the late Ed Roberts did the same thing at MIT Sloan. Companies founded by multiple founders scale further faster than single founders. It's one of the reasons why Brad Feld, who was one of my early students at that MIT program I ran, when he co-founded Techstars, no single founders were allowed in the program. You had to have at least a co-founder, so that, and look, Airbnb had 3 founders, PayPal had 5, Facebook in some sense had all of those founders as well. You can immediately divide up the duties day one,
Right.
which is why that's so helpful. But here's the key. What you have to do is find somebody you can delegate to, not abdicate, but delegate to one of the functions in the business that passes 3 tests. 1, they shouldn't need managed. So it's one of the reasons why you saw a couple weeks ago, Brian Chesky even came out and supported what Jensen said at NVIDIA. Founders should not have one-on-ones with their direct reports. We don't know where that bad habit started. It sucks up hours of time every week or every other week. And so just read what Brian Chesky and Jensen have said about that. We totally support that. 1, they shouldn't be managed. And if you feel like you've got to nudge them and look over their shoulder or whatever, you got the wrong person. Number 2, they maybe got you here, but can they get you there? Right. And those are the tough decisions, Phil, as you know. As a good friend of yours, you bring into the company, they got you to a certain level, but and by the way, they usually know as well. So It's just a conversation you have to have. And then the third test is actually maybe one of the simplest. And that is, do they wow you? Like, wow. Even your bookkeeper or CFO or whatever is like, wow, I'm glad you found that. That's clever that you came up with that. I'm glad that you discovered it. Even my first part-time bookkeeper, Claudia Smallwood, she passed all 3 tests. I could just throw numbers over to her and they would magically come back to me. She didn't need managed at all. She knew how to get us to our next level because she had done it for her husband, who had a very successful company in Ashburn. And number 3, she would often wow me. She'd go, hey, Vern, I know you're really busy. I remember my husband's early days, but let me show you something in the numbers that might be interesting. I'm like, wow, Claudia, thank you. So those are the 3 tests of who you want to surround yourself with. And then last, you as an entrepreneur really have to figure out which box you should be in. So 2 examples, Steve Jobs had the title CEO, but he was not the head of the company. That was Tim Cook.
Right.
The only function Steve chaired was the marketing function, which was a 3-hour meeting every Wednesday afternoon. So a small company example, a buddy of mine, a student of mine, Randy Amon, built a company called ABL Electronics out of Baltimore. And by the way, the soul of that business was the customer experience. And so I loved his card. It was founder and head of customer experience. Literally, it's right. It was on his business card. He brought in a CEO, CFO, VP sales, marketing, took it to 28 million, sold it to a $2 billion company, APC, because he had solved a critical customer experience issue in the entire industry.
Wow.
It saved his company a few million. APC said, Randy, that'll save us tens of millions. So they bought his company. It had nothing to do with multiple of EBITDA. And to finish the story, he went on to become the senior VP of customer experience at APC. APC gets bought by $40 billion Schneider Electric, where Randy just retired last fall as senior VP of customer experience. So it's important for founders to know their stick, what they most care about, and stick to your knitting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So with you, getting back to you, you've sort of got partners on 6 continents, businesses operating across cultural, geographic boundaries. How do you advise leaders to adapt their scaling strategies to different international rules?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you want to do, first, U.S. companies need to get global, Phil.
Yeah.
We own 60% of the global GDP in the year 2000. This year will be close to 25%.
Right.
If you're not doing business globally, you're leaving 3/4 of the market on the table. And we've been lulled to sleep by the size of our own local market. So we decided to go global in the year 2000. And you pick your first country based on where you have an existing customer doing business overseas. So we wouldn't have looked at a map and picked Malaysia first, but we had a customer that was doing business there, wanted us to support him, and it gave us $100,000 in revenue day one, so that we had some immediate support and could hire somebody then locally. The second thing I'll just say, I'll keep the answer short. Read the book, Hidden Champions of the 21st Century by my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Herman Simon. He's the one, Jim Collins really studied the Fortune 500. Herman studied us, what he calls hidden champions, family held, privately owned companies that are able to dominate very narrow niches globally. There's one company that has 8 employees, but they're the only ones that do what they do. As a result, your pricing power is high, your marketing costs are low, and you make insane margins in really simple businesses. So hidden champions of the 21st century.
I'm definitely going to read that.
And by the way, I should mention, Phil, your audience doesn't really want to read the book. It's written by a German, so it literally is a sleep aid. And Herman knows I say this. So I want to be very prescriptive. Go to SlideShare, which is that crowdsourced, PowerPoint place, and get the Hidden Champions of the 21st Century slideshow. It's like 78 slides. You can skip like the first 36. And he lays out what are the 7 things these companies do in order to get global. And we just followed it. The book first came out in 96, a year before I launched. It was our playbook.
That's fantastic. As you saying this, I was thinking pre-COVID, when we first started out, I didn't plan on starting an agency. It sort of fell in my lap because the shaving business, which I've talked about numerous times on the show, our partner in that was Energizer Corp. So now it's Edgewell, their personal care division, because they own Schick, they own Persona, they own Wilkinson, plus a bunch of other consumer products. They were
Yeah.
supplying our American-made razor. And after we sold that business, they called me and said, look, we don't know anything about direct to consumer. We don't understand it. All we do is sell to club stores, supermarkets, drug channel. We don't understand direct to consumer, and we need to. So we want you to help us do that. And so I wound up setting up an infrastructure. Um, and from that, helping them sell on Amazon, not to Amazon. They were
Yeah.
selling to Amazon, and then setting up a direct to consumer e-commerce sites for some of the brands. And from that, we wound up getting a referral from the government of South Korea, and they support entrepreneurial efforts and startups. They have a whole program, or had a whole program focused on that. So anything to do with consumer products, they would give to us, and it was fantastic because the government supported it. And what they wanted was, a website in the U.S. They wanted them on
Yeah.
Amazon. They wanted them on Walmart if it's applicable, which we were executing. And from that, and again, it fell apart during COVID a little bit. And that's a different story. But from that, we wound up with someone in Brazil who came to us because they understood what was happening in South Korea. And then we wound up with a company in Israel. And so, for a period, we still
Yeah.
have several companies short, but we sort of fell into it. It was never a strategy. I never said we're going to go global and we'll start to find, or we'll start to outreach to these places. It sort of fell in our lap. And then the light bulb went off in my head that, hey, we can do this.
Yes.
So we do. So just to support your discussion, but with you, it was a little bit more of a strategy. With me, it sort of fell in our laps.
Yeah. Well, but at least you were open to it, Phil. I mean, so
Sure.
many US companies are like, no, I'm not going to do that. Even if their customers or opportunities take you there. I think we've got to go global. I think it's almost a patriotic duty of entrepreneurs in the US to get global.
Oh, I agree. And I think
Yeah.
to a certain extent, Amazon selling has allowed that to happen for a lot of
That's
brands.
right.
I'm not a fan of this reseller model on Amazon. I am a fan of building brands and using Amazon as a tool for customer acquisition to build brands. And I have a very good friend who has a skincare product line that he started in the US, but he sells Japan, he sells in Europe, he sells and Amazon allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
And then he started to build e-commerce sites directly and getting his product into those countries. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that is nice on the consumer side. It's the business to business. We don't necessarily have Amazon, except for my books. They have made it easy with print on demand.
sure.
Now, hopefully, AI is going to make it easier to translate, to do the audio version in different languages. We're hoping that happens in 2025 for sure. But the business to business side can be a little more complicated.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, we face that now because I looked at it, and the reason we started doing it with South Korea was I thought it would be fun because I didn't understand that culture so well. So I thought, here's an opportunity for me to learn a little bit about a culture and at the same time do business with them. And it really did turn out to be fun. And obviously the Israeli side and the Italian side I love. But
Yeah.
anyway, but we just talked about COVID a little bit because that was a defining factor, in my opinion, for our business. It was a defining factor. But economic uncertainty, it's always a factor. What are strategies you give to entrepreneurs for trying to scale during economic downturns or periods of high volatility or any kind of uncertainty?
Yeah. Well, I think first, Phil, embrace it. There's this famous Brazilian F1 Formula race car driver that says, you can't pass anyone when it's sunny, but you can pass 15 cars when it's raining. So I love chaos. That is the time for you to put the pedal to the metal and really pass your competition. So part of it is a checkup for the neck up. You've got to see it as an opportunity, not as a disaster. The second thing is, and Greg Brenneman said it right at the beginning of the pandemic. He was one of the first guys we hosted when it hit there that March 13th. He said, you have to realize leaders absorb fear and exude hope. It's our job. We have to absorb the fear. You know, if you don't want to be a leader, then get out of the seat. And we have to exude hope. Now, what does that mean? In a very simple sense, what we really did is we doubled down on the daily huddle. We were in the trenches, and all we were doing as a team figuring out, because things were changing, Phil, so quickly on a day-by-day basis. And what you want to do is piece together little wins, whatever that win is that you can get. And then it's exactly as you said. We put out what we've called the 5 C's of dealing with a crisis. The first being communicate. You cannot over communicate. But the second is go huddle up with your best customers and say, all right, they're going through the same thing in the pandemic. What can we do to support you? And it was a couple of our best customers, Phil, Steve Hall specifically, Bob Verdun. I could name both those guys that saved my bacon.
Is that right?
Their insights to what it is they needed us to do for them allowed us to pivot. And crazily, we had one of our best years in 2020 when all of our in-person events overnight were wiped out. So just as you said early on, do not hide, and instead go out and see your customers, and it'll come to you. The answer will come to you. So it's all about moving fast and making decisions.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree with the communication. I agree with staying in touch with your best customers. For us, it changed our entire business. We went from pretty much focused on, this Amazon piece and e-commerce to becoming almost a creative agency, just because of what we had to do. But it was a struggle. I mean, it was a challenge every day, but we didn't lay anybody off. We didn't take, so it was a challenge, but I carried it with me because I do think that it made me a better manager, or a better leader of people, and a better manager of process, I should say.
Yeah. And the second thing we learned out of it, we hosted Susan David from Harvard. And the first thing she said is, look, everyone is suffering PTSD. We literally have been shell-shocked. And that's usually what a crisis does. And I said, yeah, Susan, I get it, but I think we're getting through it. I don't think I have it. She then asked me 3 simple questions. Phil, I had it so bad. I didn't know I had it. And so I said, all right, in a practical sense, what do we do about it? What do we do? Just go on vacation for 2 weeks? She goes, no, I know you guys can't do that. You're running companies. And she gave us all a little hint that I still practice today. And she said, 3 times a day, give yourself, and she was very prescriptive again, 8 minutes to take a break. Go crank hard, really hard for 90 minutes, 3 hours, then take 8 minutes and do something for yourself. So don't judge me, Phil, but I have a deck of cards and I love to play solitaire. So I give myself permission to just crank hard and then get up, go over to the table. Now, the reason I use cards and not my phone, because I give myself permission to cheat. Right? The last thing I need to do is lose at solitaire. If there's a card I need to pull out or move this or change that, this is the point. You do it for yourself. I have to read all these business books, but I also enjoy, every week I get People magazine. And so it is okay. Take 8 minutes and pop open, sit on the couch in your office and just read People magazine. Do something for yourself 3 times a day. A little side note, a buddy of mine, Jerry South, is invested in the company out of Annapolis called, and they have similar, it's called like the third room. It's not the third place like Starbucks, but the third room. They got a contract with the military and the Anne Arundel healthcare system first, where they've put a booth in the hospital, and a doctor's just come off of a really tough situation, a nurse. The doctor thinks they're going to lose it on somebody. They go into the booth, and they can put on VR, and they can go to their happy place for 10 minutes. And the research is clear what it does to get somebody to calm down, to get back refocused. And if you need to, you can go in as an avatar into a live psychiatrist session, group session, where you can just get off your chest what it is that right now has got you lit up. And we're a being that can't think our way out of stuff. We have to talk our way out, which is why forum in EO and YPO is so absolutely critical. And that's why in the pandemic, if there's anything I'm most proud of, there were 18,000 entrepreneurs who were not alone. And in many cases, their forum, their mastermind, met every week virtually for an hour, helping each other through. You don't want to go through it alone.
No, it would be impossible to go through it alone. It was a stressful time, and we needed to talk.
Yes.
I know that I was talking to people almost every day, just even some competitors, just to that were friends of mine, to talk and just to understand what everybody else. So I think sometimes we have a tendency to think it's only us that's having the problem. And so when you start talking to other people and you start sharing what that information is, or what they're doing, or the steps they're taking, or what they're going through, I think it starts to make us all a little bit better, makes everybody feel better. I know 20-minute conversations, and I felt better after doing that, even though it felt like the walls were caving in. But
and by the way, it's neuropsychological. If you watch the brainwave scans, which we can do now, if you're thinking about a problem, it just further lights up the amygdala. You just want to fight or flight or whim and fly. The minute you speak it, Phil, then it shuts down and the prefrontal lobes light up like a Christmas tree. And part of it's about putting the vibrations out into the world. It's that physical. And just like we can pick up the faint signals from the Viking spaceships that are now way beyond our universe, people in the universe can pick up our faint signals, but we have to speak them and put the vibrations out there. So it really is that practical to speak it, not try to think it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Jasper before, but AI obviously is a hot topic. Everybody, everything is revolving around AI.
Yeah.
People think they're going to lose jobs, and we've been using AI tools for years. To me, the biggest innovation was the ability to take large amounts of data, especially from running advertising, and give me some sort of a guidance from it. Some of those AI tools, which I think, and on top of generative AI to write and things like that. But with these rapid advances, how do you think businesses can effectively incorporate these tools and strategies into their scaling process, without losing focus of their core mission, especially when it comes to AI?
Yeah. One of the publications I write for is Chief Executive Magazine. So I just submitted my latest column. I think it's coming out maybe this week. And it features a company out of Pittsburgh called Co-Distributing. They actually are at COE Distributing. Look, it's not Facebook or Google or anything. They distribute office furniture.
Right.
The key to their success in integrating AI, probably better than almost any mid-market company I've seen on the planet, is they partnered with the University of Pittsburgh's data analytics class. So by the way, go to your local junior college, go to your local university. You're not going to find an AI department. It's going to be under data analytics.
Yeah.
And then go to the professor and say, hey, would you like some real world projects for your students to work on? Now, JD Ewing's the founder CEO. He pays them $10,000 a semester, but over the last 5 years, Phil, the significant applications of AI to his company are unbelievable. Now to the point where he's worked with these students for so long, he's now brought 2 of them. Hey, let's date before we get married. Now he's brought 2 of them on, and he's building out his own data analytics function. I'll just give you one example. He said, look, Netflix is the #1 movie studio in the world. Why? Because of their data analytics, they can predict what likely is going to be the next hot thing. He says, we have the same thing. We got to figure out what's going to be the hot wood color for 2025. What's going to be the new designs that we should. And before, it was such a grind to guess. Then they literally would have to mock up the furniture, have these photo and video shoots and all of this. AI does it now. The students built an engine that is much more accurate in predicting what's going to be the hot wood color for 2025 than anyone on his team. It then mocks up the furniture in photos, and they have an avatar who does the video, and it even writes all of the copy. And it has been, that's just one of many, many initiatives. But so I took his idea, and since I'm the new Global Scale Up Fellow at Harvard, I partnered with Shua Gong's class, and we've got a couple of student groups working on some significant AI initiatives for us, led by Shua.
That's fantastic. The piece that I love about AI and about what's happened in the change of technology is one of the best ways to speak to people is through television, because there are still people watching. Now it's changed, right? We spent millions of dollars on traditional television, and I hated it because it was untrackable. Yeah. But today we have connected TV advertising on OTT channels. And the beauty of it is you're using a demand side platform, so you can hyper target exactly who you want. So if you and I are on Netflix and we're watching the exact same show at the exact same time, we could even be in the exact same room. You and I are going to be fed different commercials because we have different interests, which I think is just phenomenal. But most of that is becoming AI driven. And as a company, we've gotten further and further into doing connected TV as the costs come down for people. And the beauty of it is, between running a connected TV ad, using pixels on the website, those people that are seeing the ad coming to the website, we can now remarket to them effectively online, which turns the ROAS exponentially higher than it ever was before. And we can offer that to our customers. But the data that comes back, the information that comes back, the decision making that comes back is something I've never seen before. And I just, for me, I love it. Because I live and die by numbers, and I just think it's phenomenal. So you had mentioned Netflix before, and to me, I think it's that whole world is becoming bigger and bigger for me.
Yeah. Well, and every generation, Phil, has thought technology was going to be the end of humans. And it never has. It's like every generation thinks the end is near, and it never has been realized. And so to me, I think the article, it's not quite AI, but to me, the article of the last couple of months was in USA Today. And they reported that McDonald's worldwide has put in all of these kiosks to replace people having to take your order. And the reason was so they could cut down on labor. Guess what? A surprise happened. They need more labor.
Yeah.
Because what happened is, and I remember the few times we take our kids to the McDonald's, there'd be a line and there's 2 people taking orders. So I'm like, kids, hurry up, figure out what you want, get your order placed. Now with dozens of them spread all over the restaurant, you can come up in a very relaxed way. Everyone can take their time, and that menu can make suggestions. Oh, you ordered this and you ordered this. Hey, wouldn't you want this and this? The article doesn't say, but we have some clients that are McDonald's franchisees. It's effectively increased the ticket by about 50%. And as a result, now they need more people making the food, delivering the food, keeping the restaurant clean. And so we have essentially zero unemployment and some of the most amazing technology today. It's yet to put us humans out of work yet.
It reminds me of when the supermarket started putting in self-checkouts, thinking that they were going to save labor on cashiers, but they really didn't, because you needed people to help and assist and move it through. The customers enjoyed it because it was, you didn't have to wait online. It was perceived to be faster. Whether it truly was or not, it doesn't matter. It was perceived to be faster and more efficient. So
yeah, which, by the way, it's a subtle thing, Phil, but one of the things that we've got to put a knife in is division of labor. We didn't have division of labor for, eons. Then the industrial age came along and lined everybody up, 54 job descriptions on a Harley Davidson line. Harley got rid of that and replaced it with 5 job descriptions, where a team, only 5 people touch the motorcycle now instead of 54. Ultimately, and this is where AI can help, the happiest customers are those that self-serve. If you can use technology all the way to the point where no human in your company has to touch it, that's what the customer wants the most. They're not mad at themselves if they're slow checking out their groceries and looking for, because we're in control. Right. And so you could have the best customer service at a bank, but give me an ATM machine any day, and lots of them. Than trying to go park and go inside a bank, even if you've got friendly tellers. So getting to the point where we can have more and more customers self-serve. We've got B2B examples, not just B2C.
Right. We have, we're running a little bit short on time, so we've got time for maybe one quick one. Essentially the topic of learning from failure, because we've had a ton of entrepreneurs on here and they all talk about growing their company, and everybody's always had a setback story where it becomes a decision point. Am I going to keep going or do I stop? Because, some people hit that wall and they just can't face it. They don't want to push through it, and they retreat. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe you have a quick story that we can tell about learning from setbacks, learning from failure.
Look, I would say there's 3 things. Look, Phil, I've got 10-minute stories for everything, as you can already tell. But the first thing is where entrepreneurs get in trouble is they actually succeeded at their first big, hairy, audacious goal. And now they've caught themselves managing to the next year. You got to go put out something big. So the first thing, and we said at the beginning of the pandemic, there's only one strategy: be ambitious. Add a few zeros to your thinking. Look, there's no way I was going to get Reagan's team, Steve Jobs' team, any of them on my side as a student at Wichita State if my vision was a local student group at my university.
Yeah.
The fact that I was building the world's largest entrepreneurs organization, which it is today, and it's the YPO for entrepreneurs, that comparative BHAG that Jim Collins would say, is what allowed me to attract it. So add a few zeros. And as Bill Gates said, we overestimate what we can do in a year, but we way underestimate what we can do for 10 years. So first, be ambitious. Second, it's a mindset. Get rid of the word failure. You're either earning or learning. You're either winning or learning. There is no failure. And then read Annie Duke's new book. And she's the great poker player who's become now quite a business sage. And her books are spectacular. And her latest book is, but know when to fold them.
Right.
That the most successful entrepreneurs knew when to put an end to a product line or something that wasn't making money, and to move on, get back with the customer and adjust your strategy. So you've got to know when to fold them too.
You got to know when to fold them. That's a great one. Yeah, Vern, I can't tell you how interesting this conversation's been. I'm happy that you took the time to come on the show. We'll have a description of obviously you on the show, and links to your websites, links to your books, which I think some of them I think people should read. I still read them, and I forgot about the huddle because I do use that as well. I forgot about the daily huddle. So, all these little things, they're just small little tools, but they make a big difference.
Yeah. So, well, if I could leave with a thought, it's the thing that drives me crazy in business, Phil. I don't know if you're a golfer or a tennis player or whatever, but how often do you have to review the fundamentals?
Oh,
like every stroke. I mean, Scotty Scheffler's got a molded 5-iron that before every round, he goes out and hits 100 golf balls to make sure that the grip is right. In business, we read a book 10 years ago and act like we mastered it.
Right.
I'd rather you pick a couple books and reread them every year and stay focused on the fundamentals. Our new book, Start to Scale, I hope would be maybe one of those books.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it will be. I haven't read that one yet, but it's the truth. And we have that problem even in our business with clients where everybody's looking for a silver bullet. There's got to be an ad that's going to skyrocket our business. And I keep saying, no, we have to deal with the fundamentals. These are the 10 things we're going to do every single day. But isn't there one thing we can do to go viral? And you're going, these are the things we're going to do every day. And so,
and then something will pop and it'll go viral.
Exactly. So you're 100% right. We always go back to the fundamentals, and I do it myself. But again, thanks for being on. We'll have all your information in there, all the links. So it'll be great. We'll do this show justice. It'll air later on today. So thanks for being on, and I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time.
Happy holidays to you and everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Vern.